This is really a perfect day for a midday walk. It's not hot, not sunny. It's a little overcast. Actually, it's pretty overcast. Slight breeze, feels so good. I don't know if you can hear it, but the birds are chirping in the background. It's just really wonderful. But many of us know that this overcast sky, this little bit of breeze can quickly turn into a storm. Those of us who have been involved in storms, maybe we've hunkered down in the bathtub at home as things have tried to pass over us, tornadoes, other kinds of storms. And so we're well familiar with the challenges that those have. And actually, sometimes it can actually become life-threatening, right? It's no different for those who are suffering from different types of mental illness, from depression, bipolar disorder. They live each day anticipating the potential for a terrible storm. What I'd like to do for you today is take you on a journey with our family through stormy times, through overcast times, and to let you know that truly on the other side of the clouds, there is hope. There's a rainbow. You may not see it now, but it's there. Join us on this journey together and survive the storm.
So I remember when everything changed. Kelly was K-Fred, PTA Volunteer of the Year, well deserved. She had her hands, fingers and toes in everything, whether she was building something or she was painting something or videoing something or planning something. Her energy level was astounding. And then I remember that day, that morning was a PTA board meeting, and Kelly came in and something was wrong. Her face was solemn. She was withdrawn, quiet, and she sat way away from everyone, away from all of her friends, and all I could think of is, what is the matter? Something is wrong. So the meeting began, and nothing but just a typical boring PTA board meeting. Nothing was really said, no comments were made towards her, and then suddenly she stood up and she just walked out. And I remember thinking, what is going on? So when it was over, I approached everyone there and said, what happened? Did Kelly have a death in the family? What's the matter with her? She's different. Why did she leave? And no one knew. And I think it took a couple of days before I was able to make contact with her. And that's when Kelly was in that dark place. She was gone. To a certain extent, she was not. It was scary. You know, what do you do when someone suddenly changes completely and their life has been taken over by something they can't control? I know that through the journey with Kelly, there would be late night phone calls, and she would tell me scary things like that she was having episodes where things were floating above her bed, or she had suicidal thoughts and she would describe them for me, or that she had just driven down, the interstate going at 90 miles an hour because she was hoping she'd be in a wreck and it would all be over. What do you do when someone that you care slips into mental illness? All I can say is the decision I made is I refused to go. I wouldn't leave. And so began the time that I walked through the dark place with Kelly.
My first impressions of Kelly were she's fun, carefree, energetic, crazy, not in the way you're thinking, just wild and crazy fun. No filter when she talks, and a get it done girl. And she could get it all done. I was envious of her endless amounts of energy, but I had no idea what was coming. When things went sideways, a group of moms took turns watching Kelly during the day. She would spend an entire day sleeping on her couches because she couldn't be left by herself. It all came to a head for me one day when I took Kelly to her doctor's appointment with her counselor. After the appointment, I asked her counselor if she was going to be okay. The counselor said, "She'll be fine," but ended with, "Just don't leave her alone." And I looked at her and I said, "That's not fine." So I kept watching Kelly that day, and as the day progressed, her mental state continued to deteriorate rapidly. She shared with me how she would kill herself, the wheres and hows in disturbing detail. The final straw for me was her begging me to make the voices stop while she banged her head on my dashboard of my car. Frightened for her safety and the safety of those around her, her kids, her husband, her friends, I made a drastic decision to take her to the hospital and have her admitted. Saints. I called Donovan from the hospital and told him where we were and waited for the intake nurse. When they asked Kelly if she was suicidal, she replied no. I quickly said that was a lie, and I gave them the details she had shared with me. Her emotions quickly turned to anger, and she argued, and she punched me in the arm. I said, "Punch me all you want, but you're not leaving." Kelly told me she doesn't remember any of this. Her mind was not her own that day, or in the many days and months that came to follow. But I can tell you honestly that this is a day I will never forget. Her battle is ongoing, but her desire to stay healthy, the support from her friends, the prayers that surround her, and the devotion of her family is what will get her through the tough times. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that her husband Donovan has been a rock during this epic battle. It's a consensus that all of our mom friends share.
It was tiring. It was very difficult to raise my kids and to take care of her and to work. I was in school during part of that time. It was difficult. I would do it all again, but it was a challenge. And so the thing that was the most helpful for me was to have the support of our church family, and that I knew that I wasn't in it alone, but that I had those that cared about our family, that cared about me, and were going to be there to help. Not just say, don't get me wrong, prayers are so important, but not just to say, "I'll be praying for you," but to actually put some feet to that, some hands to it, and to actually bring us food, to go visit. Matter of fact, Kelly thrived on visits, and so she loved to have people there with her and when she was inpatient in the hospital. And so I would get my little spreadsheet together, and I would have all the times that were available for her to have visitors.
The double white doors that kept me from leaving were the very same doors that would bring me visitors. The greatest thing I could ever imagine when I was in the hospital. I had so many people come and visit me. I had friends and church friends, but best of all, I had my family. Andrew would come in, he'd say, "Mom, I got him, Mom." I said, "Okay, let's go." And we go in the dining area and get a styrofoam cup and pour the M&Ms in there. And we play cards and eat M&Ms, because chocolate is not good for the hospital people. But they are when your son brings them. So.
Well, from our perspective, my wife and I, we're not really familiar with mental illness, so a lot of dealing with Kelly especially was kind of an unknown territory for us. It took a lot to go visit her because we didn't know what we were dealing with, and it's pretty scary when you go into an area of the hospital that's, locked doors and all these things that you're not really used to. But it was a necessary thing really for us as much as it was for her. I mean, we needed to see her, we needed to see what the environment that she was in, but also we needed to see what she was going through, I guess. Just being there for somebody is a big deal.
The hardest part of having visitors, though, was especially with my family, was hugging them and saying goodbye and watching that double white doors shut behind them, and I'd be on the other side watching.
And I would contact different people in church who loved her and say, do you have any of these times when you might be willing to go and visit with her? And so we would fill up her schedule, and she would tell you that others were a little bit jealous, others who had no one who came, no one to support her. But our church family came out, and they were there for us during those difficult, dark times. So that's important. If you want to know what you can do, be there. Be there and help support and love and care unconditionally.
The routine. I was at school practicing for the talent show when my best friend's mom called me to the cafeteria foyer. She handed me the phone and I heard my father's shaking voice. My heart started pounding faster and faster until I broke down crying. I thought she was finally better, I remember saying to my dad with pauses between every word. He came to the school and picked me up. It was the longest drive I've ever gone through. We drove and drove until we finally reached it. I've gotten so used to the word that it has become its new name. We walked in and the smell of disease and death surrounded us. I hated that smell more than anything. We went to our usual elevator and went up to the usual floor, and I said the usual code that I had memorized by now. I was so tired of this routine. We walked in and there she was, my mom, in the hospital, or it again.
Baylor All Saints Hospital was my home away from home. I ended up staying there about 280 days from 2004 to 2007. We came to know it as Club Meds. I stayed no less than 2 weeks and no more than a month each visit. I knew all of the nurses and the techs on the floor, and that was pretty comforting. I didn't get warm fuzzies when I went there, but I did feel safe, and I also felt like a prisoner. There came a point, though, in almost every stay that I would feel like myself again. Medication and the safety of the floor made me have a break from the storm. I made friends and we talked and laughed and felt a sense of normal. I would typically get blamed when the group got a little rowdy. Well, I can't help it if I'm funny when I'm happy.
Now, my wife is so hard-headed. My mother-in-law used to tell me about stories about when she was a child and how hard-headed she was. And even today, her body is hard-headed. Her body is the most treatment-resistant that any of the doctors have seen. A number of them have said that. And so we've tried so many different things. I recall a time when the two of us went to visit with her doctor, and as we're sitting there, her doctor said, I really don't see a lot of hope. And I would get, if it were my guess, I would say that Kelly has maybe 6 months to live. She's just not going to make it. And so, what do you say? What do you think when someone says that about your wife? And so, it was a difficult time for us, of course, but we decided that we were going to go on a journey together, and that journey was going to take us wherever it would to find the solution, the cure, the treatment that would work for her. And so we did that, and we've gone all over the place. We've gone to other countries. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars out of our pocket because insurance wouldn't cover things. And we've done some pretty extreme treatments that we'll tell you about. But it's worth it, isn't it? To increase that quality of life and just increase the length of life. And so I would just suggest that you be committed to doing whatever it takes to get to the place where your loved one needs to be.
Donovan and I had to make the awful decision of whether or not I was going to have this done. Medication wasn't working, and this was an option. And so we went ahead and said yes. I had it done every other day for 2 weeks in the hospital and a week outside of the hospital. It would leave me disoriented, headaches, and with no relief.
You know, medications I know are necessary, and there's a reason, a purpose for them. And I know with Kelly, it's been really important for her to maintain those medications, but I tell you, they can really be scary. So I would just suggest that you not be overly scared by them, that you be really cautious. I remember the first time Kelly started taking some of these stronger medications. I was sitting in the living room. I think the kids were in there as well. And I heard some rustling going on in the kitchen, and I glanced over, and just in time to see her just pass completely out. And so I, of course, ran in there, and she was just laying in the floor in the kitchen, and I couldn't get her I couldn't arouse her. I couldn't get her to come to. And as you can imagine, that was a pretty scary time for us. And the kids and I helped to get her actually kind of drug into a place where she could lay down and everything, but it took her a while to even be coherent again. So those medications can be really strong, especially when you're starting to get acclimated to them. For me, there was a time when Kelly kind of got off on the medication a little bit, and once you start getting off a little bit on what you're taking, not taking the right things, the right dosages or whatever, and she takes several. Once you start that road, it can be a slippery slope. And so she got way off at one point and ended up in some trouble. And so I've taken it on myself as the primary caretaker that it's my job to administer all of her medications. And so I've been administering her meds for a number of years. Once a week, I have just a pill box for the week, and I just divvy all those out. And then even periodically, I look to make sure that she's taken the sections that she's supposed to have taken by then. And not to treat her as a child, but just to care about her and to make sure that she's doing what she needs to do in order to get better.
I've been seeing my psychiatrist for more than 20 years now. I started seeing her for being treated for ADHD. I trust her with the chemistry of my brain. I had had over 30 different medications to treat this illness. There's only a handful left to try, and that we needed to be selective and careful when we make these decisions. I have several side effects from the medications, some severe, some just annoying. The most unrelenting and awful one I just hate is called restless leg syndrome. I have it without the medication, but it's exasperated 1 million times. Weight gain was a nightmare. I gained 80 pounds on certain medication in 1 year. Once I stopped taking the medicine, I lost 50 of those pounds. Dry mouth is awful. Did not know the ramifications of it until I lost all my teeth on the top and part of the bottom. I now have $30,000 implants on top. Insomnia, agitation, and lithium toxicity. Lithium toxicity happened when my hospital doctor overprescribed the lithium and nearly killed me.
One day I walked into the bedroom, and she was in bed, and I thought, it's the middle of the day and you're laying in bed, and I looked in her face, and it was drawn, and she was a little incoherent, not a lot, but just a little bit, and she was drooling uncontrollably, and I was concerned. Matter of fact, I thought that she had had a stroke, and so I got her up as best I could, and we got her walking her cane, and this she was maybe her late 30s, maybe 40 at this time, and so I got her to the doctor immediately, and I remember when we walked into the room and he saw her. Actually, he said an expletive, and he said he could not believe what was going on with her. And so we got her into the hospital, and what happened was that she takes a lithium, and had been taking it for some time, and it sometimes can pool in your system, and so it had really overdosed in her system, and so they had to try to titrate that out, and so she was in the hospital and for 2 weeks there as they tried to take care of her, and I stayed in there with her for those couple of weeks. And I remember the doctor coming to me and saying, things are not working well, and it may be that we need to do kidney dialysis because this has some kidney effects. Are you okay with that? If she does, she's going to probably have to do that for the rest of her life. And so I asked him what the other options were. He said we could wait just a little bit longer, maybe things will kick in and start working. And the best decision that I ever made in my life was not to start that yet, but to wait it out a little bit longer, and things started progressing, and she was out of her mind for a while. There were a lot of challenging times in that hospital, but she did come through it successfully, which is what we cared about most. And so
my philosophy is go big, hard, and fast, or go away. I call this the good mania. In 2015 through 2018, you can see all over my backyard and front yard and through my house what good mania does. It's called speed building or speed remodeling. I built a shed in 2 weeks. I built a deck and a pergola in 2 weeks. I dug out a pond and moved rocks in 3 weeks. I can't say no during this time. I'm driven to help. Mania will turn bad, usually when I've lost too much sleep and my mind is very tired. I will have moments of psychosis where I have a hard time recognizing what is real and what isn't. My brain is overrun with noise. And yes, I have had voices in my head. Sleep is difficult, but very much needed. And my impulse control is awful. This includes driving, spending, gambling, and acting on ideas. Depression is my darkness. It always follows the mania, and it comes without warning most of the time. I have an agitated depression, which is very difficult to handle. I have a punching bag that I bought, and I put it out back, and I just beat it to death to get out as much aggression as I can. Suicidal thoughts come and go with different intensities. I remember back to my early times in 2004, 2005. I would get in my brand new Yukon, GMC Yukon, and I'd drive as fast as I could down Interstate 30, 90, 95 miles an hour, sometimes 100, dodging in and out of cars, hoping I would hit not a person, but the side of a bridge or overpass or something, but I never did. On May 11th, 2006, I wrote in my journal, I think a lot about death and dying a lot during the day. I find myself lost in thoughts about how it would be once I die. I have already missed out so much on my kids' lives. I feel guilty for not being the whole person they need and deserve. The whole process of mania and depression can be 4 to 6 months.
I've said this before, but it bears repeating. If I were to suggest 3 things that you could do to help the one that you love who's suffering through challenges, mental illness, the best thing that we did for us was be involved with our church body, and they were so supportive of me, of her, and visited her and cared about her, and so a support system is important. The other thing is education. Educate yourself. Don't be scared of it. Don't let it stigmatize you, but go out, dig in, and research. Know what the medications do, know what the illness is, what the prognosis could be. Last thing is to listen. Again, I'm the one who wants to fix everything, and you can't. All you can do, matter of fact, any solutions that I would give only would tend to agitate her even more. And so the best thing you could do is to listen. And there have been many times when I've just sat in the dark and listened to her talk, listened to her cry, and just been there for her. And so sometimes that's all they really need from you.
Not long after the illness set in, I felt an abandonment from God. I got angry. I thought, how could you do this to somebody who's been so faithful to work for you and serve you? As a symbolic gesture, I took the Bible that meant so much to me and I carried everywhere with me and put it in a drawer and shut it and didn't open it for probably 7 more years. My mom would come and tell me, you know, one day you'll be able to help somebody. And I just look at her and, in not so kind words, tell her that would never happen to me. I didn't care. And she'd just smile at me, that silly grin she has. In February 6, 2006, I wrote in my journal, trusting in God's unfailing love should be a no-brainer, right? Well, it's not. This is really hard for me right now. How could someone who has unfailing love for you and can allow things like this to happen to me and my family? Well, God never left my side, and I could feel Him through the prayers and the support of my family and church. Slowly, my anger has lifted, and I'm getting more and more reacquainted with Him.
A lot of people become concerned about how mental illness in the family can affect children, the way that they see their parents, the way they see that mentally ill person. And I know for us, we made a point of not hiding it from our kids, but again, educating them, letting them know what the situation was, not to a point of scaring them, but letting them know the reality, and that we were going to, and assuring them that we were going to do whatever it took to get their mother to a place where she was whole again, where she was able to function again. And so I do remember one time I was at work, getting ready to leave work, and I got a phone call, and my oldest son, Chris, told me, Dad, I don't think things are right with Mom. I think you really need to come home, and we need to maybe take her to the hospital. And so, wow, I mean, that's a sobering, when your teenage son contacts you and says that, he was very keyed in to her and to what her needs were. And so, so I excuse me, left work, drove home, and when I walked in the door, the sweetest sight that I've ever seen is Kelly laying across the couch, and Chris sitting on the couch with Kelly's head in her lap. He was running his fingers through her hair. And and just said, "Dad, we need to get her some help." And so we couldn't wake her up. He took one end, I took the other. We carried her, laid her across the back seat in the car, and drove her to the hospital to get her to the help that she needed. So I would just suggest that you let your kids be part of the journey with you. My kids are so much stronger as adults now because of the things that they've encountered through our family when they were younger.
I'll never forget the first time I told Donovan to take the kids and leave. I couldn't let him suffer anymore. This was my pain, not his. They deserved a normal life, and I couldn't do it for him. So I hoped that he would go, take them, and then when he was gone, I planned on just making it final. But he ruined everything. The fool, he stayed, and he stayed, and he stayed, and he's still here. We've had knockdown, drag-out fights over what I'm thinking, him not understanding me, not being able to explain it to him. He has a different way of thinking than me, and that makes it difficult. And despite his not being able to understand everything, he stayed by and he educated himself and the kids. And there was many nights he didn't sleep when I had hallucinations or bad nights. He would stay up and watch and protect me so I could sleep. The hospital staff loved him and my kids, and they said I would make it because of his support and their support. They were 200% right. He has been my rock through this, and now I'm convinced that I'm stuck with him till the end, and I'm good with that. Friends are also a great support, and I had a friend circle, so to speak, an emergency phone line I could text or call, and those friends knew to answer and to respond with something. They went above and beyond the call of duty as friends when things were bad. Friends would show up at the hospital that didn't know I was there because my phone I wouldn't answer for days. So they knew something was up, so they'd show up at the hospital. I couldn't have even begin to count how many friends I have that have been a part of my support system. I am totally blessed with friends.
God has a way of crossing people's paths at the right time. I do believe that. Kelly and I have supported each other for, like I said, over 15 years. There's times when I was a little healthier than her and was able to help her. And when I was down, she was able to help me. That is one good thing about our friendship. It is, we laugh together, we float together, we cry together, we vent with each other. The most important thing I would say is support. Support is so important, especially when you don't really know what you need from people. People say, "What do you need? Do you need me to pray for you? Do you need me to bring you food? Do you need me to pick up your kids?" I said, the most important thing is just being there and listening and not feel like you have to hold it in and be embarrassed by it. And I'm grateful that God kept me alive so that I'm able to support and help others. And I'm thankful for Kelly. I'm thankful for watching her grow. I'm thankful that she's been there for me so many times. And I'm just blessed to know her.
It wasn't long ago, maybe 18 months, 20 months ago, that I was told by somebody that I didn't want to get better. What a crushing blow. It's almost as bad as hearing that you have bipolar. And I didn't know what to do. It was at a point in my life where I was dealing with a deep depression. And it threw me so much further down became more suicidal, hurt myself more. I was not getting the help I needed to get. I'd given up. And then I found Scott, my therapist I have now, and he helped me see by telling me that you can't get better until you're shown how to get better. And that's what he is doing right now with me. The two of us were working together. I've learned to identify my triggers and how to deal with them when they hit. For 18 months now, I've not had an episode. It's the first time in 5 years. It hasn't been an easy road. I deal with ups and downs daily. And I can't give up. My family is my anchor to this world. I live for each day I get to have with them. Mental illness is a lonely existence in today's world. Society is quick to judge and not comfort. I was lucky to have an incredible support system. I did lose some friends, but the true ones stayed. I want to challenge you to reach out to those you know that are hurting. Be somebody to someone today.
Well, I think that I'm going to go ahead and head back inside. The wind is picking up. It's looking more like it's getting ready to rain. And I'm going to go in and out of that while I can do that. Are you in a time right now in your life where you feel like the rains are coming? Maybe they're already there. Maybe they're there in the life of someone you love. Maybe it seems like that the good times in life are just hit or miss. Well, I want to encourage you today that there is hope. There is hope for a better tomorrow. Surround yourself with those who love you. Get the help that you need. And take this journey to survive your storm. Thanks. Thanks for joining us. And God bless you.
Looking back on memories that seem so far away, wondering why those perfect times have began to fade. I close my eyes and watch the world go by, my hopes, my dreams, oh how I've tried. I don't know why these times have to be like this. Right now, good times seem like an endless. I don't know why these times have to be like this. Right now, good times seem like an endless. Taking life one step at a time. Never look back, trying to find somewhere to hide. Just wondering how it's going to be someday, not knowing how everything will turn out. I don't know why these times have to be like this. Right now, soul. Same ones that tell you where to turn and which way to go. Your troubles come no more. Your feet are back on the floor. You realize your life is worth so much. Whoa. So much trials, these falls, I know God will fix. Now I know why these times have to be like this. These trials, these falls, I know God will fix. Now I know why these times have to be like this. These trials, these falls, I know